Hail Internet, it's Matt here for the Dork Lords. If you are new to the channel, welcome. We do all manner of dorkly things here, so whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, we probably have a playlist about it. Feel free to check us out. Today is the next installment in our Dork Lord of the Rings segment, in which I'm going to talk about what I consider to be the most impactful deleted scene from Lord of the Rings. Now, if you've got the extended versions of those movies, there's a lot of deleted scenes in there, and some of them, there's Aragorn looking at the Palantir, the background on Faramir and Boromir. There's Faramir and Éowyn. There's some definitely candidates for important scenes. However, the one I'm going to talk about involves the Mouth of Sauron. So, in the theatrical release of Return of the King, you've got Aragorn and the company ride up to the Black Gate. The Black Gate starts to open. They turn around and ride back. Aragorn gives his big speech. It is not this day. And then the fight happens. Okay. And the whole time it's basically, we're going to try to distract Sauron and his armies to give Frodo time to destroy the ring. Desperate gambit. Okay. The deleted scene shows that, and it's not exactly like the book, but it's more to what the book actually does. So the deleted scene shows Aragorn, Gandalf, Legolas, etc. show up at the Black Gate. Gate opens. The Mouth of Sauron comes out to parley with them. Basically insults them. Shows them Frodo's mithril coat. Says he died horribly after being tortured, and it was a painful death. And in his anger, Aragorn chops the head off of the Mouth of Sauron and then rides back, and then that would theoretically then be what happens. And he gives a speech, and they fight. Just to give you the background on what happens in the book, similar thing. They ride up. Mouth of Sauron comes out to parley. Aragorn does not chop the Mouth of Sauron's head off. That's not exactly what a good guy would do. I mean, as insulting as the Mouth of Sauron was, they're there to parley. I mean, that's kind of that's an underhanded move. You're not supposed to do that, and I feel like that's not a thing that Aragorn would have done. Anyway, but they have the conversation. In the book, Mouth of Sauron insults them, shows them not only the mithril coat, but he also shows them Sam's sword and one of the gray elven cloaks with the brooch, the Lorien leaf brooch, and says, hey, we've got this guy. If you don't turn back now and go all the way back to the Anduin, give us all these lands, we will torture him and make him horrible, and then this unrecognizable creature, I guess something almost like turn him into Gollum, basically, and then send it back to you. So a couple of differences. One, Frodo's not dead, theoretically. I mean, according to this guy, he's saying, we've got him, and we're going to torture him horribly if you don't turn around. And Aragorn doesn't kill him. I should say, real quick, who is the Mouth of Sauron? In the book, he's not just a giant mouth attached to a neck. The description of him, he has a pretty reasonable dialogue with Gandalf and Aragorn in the book, and it describes him. It says, here's a little bit from Return of the King. A tall and evil shape, mounted upon a black horse. The rider was robed all in black, and black was his lofty helm. Yet this was no ring wraith, but a living man. His name is I just screwed up that line. His name is remembered in no tale, for he himself had forgotten it. I goofed that line because I was like, oh, this is that line. It's my buddy Theron, who's contributed to the channel and is a major Tolkien nerd as well. That's one of his favorite lines from the books. His name is remembered in no tale, for he himself had forgotten it. It's a great line. The idea that his own identity has just disappeared over time. in his service to Sauron. But yeah, so Mouth of Sauron is actually a Númenórean, so of the same race of men as Aragorn. Several Númenóreans basically pledged fealty to Sauron early on and were corrupted. He's one of them. So he is a man. He's not this weird monster creature. And in his dialogue with Gandalf and Aragorn in the book, it's very clear that he has been picked by Sauron to basically take up Saruman's place at Isengard. So one of his rule, hey, if you want to get Frodo back, you have to make Isengard, nice again, so that I can come and hang out there and rule that particular part of the land. So that shows you he was one of the lieutenants of Sauron and would have been granted Isengard had he survived, which he did not. Okay, so anyway, that's your background, your setting. But what makes a huge difference to me anyway is in the movie, in the theatrical release of the movie, and Aragorn gets back there and he does his speech, and then he does that thing where he says, "For Frodo," and then they turn and they fight. And in the theatrical release version, that's still we're in a holding action. We're just trying to buy Frodo a few more minutes. Okay. Now, if you put that deleted scene in, which is, again, more faithful to the book version, having seen these, the mithril coat and such, they buy the idea that it's at least very likely, if not a done deal, that Frodo is dead or captured, being tortured. So they've lost. In that moment, then, what that means when Aragorn comes back and he gives his inspirational speech and he says, "For Frodo," to me, that's a much more poignant scene if you put it in the context of, we lost. It's hopeless. We might as well, we're going to go out in a blaze of glory, but it was a good run. But, it's better to die here than to surrender and, basically give everything over to Sauron. And so that poignancy is really interesting. And I think it's also a theme that runs through a lot of Tolkien's work, especially through a lot of Lord of the Rings in particular, is the idea of what I'll call it hopeless courage, right? So it's courage without really hope of success. There's a bit where Aragorn, after Gandalf's death, when Aragorn is talking to the company and he says, we must do without hope, basically because Gandalf's dead, but at least we may yet be avenged. There's another great line that Theoden has at Helm's Deep. There's a paraphrase of it in the movie. It's not quite as good as the actual book line, but basically the book line is something like, "At least we shall make such an end as will be worth a song, if there be those left to sing hereafter." Something like that. So in other words, we're going to go out, this is it, this is hopeless, but we're going to fight anyway because it's the right thing to do. And that notion of hopeless courage is just, there's a poignancy to it. I keep coming back to that word, but it's true that I feel like that's a quality of honor that Tolkien prized and put into his heroes and his heroic characters a lot. And in some ways, Frodo and Sam, while sure they have a fool's hope, it is but a fool's hope of succeeding in their mission. There's plenty of times where they're pretty hopeless that they're actually going to take this ring all the way to this volcano and drop it in, and survive, or who knows what's, when there's that bit where Sam's like, "Well, I'm keeping enough bread for us to get back." And he's like, "They get back? What are you talking about? We're not going to get back." That sense of courage in the face of hopelessness is something that they manifest as well. And so I think I prefer the idea of Aragorn giving an inspirational speech and saying for Frodo in that bit where he would acknowledge that we've lost, and but we're still going to be heroic in this moment. So anyway, there you go. To me, the most impactful deleted scene from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because I feel like it really changed the entire meaning and the meaning of that particular pivotal scene. So if you've got a deleted scene or something from the extended versions that you think is the most pivotal scene that they should have left in, perhaps, feel free to let me know in the comments. So that's all we've got for today. Thanks a lot. Subscribe. Hit the like button if you like this. And we will see you next time, everybody. Bye.